Did you catch the Stafford tribute? It was awesome.
It's hot out there, so let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Trozian, and this is RamView, the April 19th, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word. KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. All right. So everyone's hot on the draft. Everything's breaking down the draft. There is multiple. I mean, there are so many mock drafts out there that I'm overwhelmed with mock draft, right? And basically what I can tell you that I've gleaned from this is that if there's a mock draft that has the Rams drafting at 19, it's generally Latu, UCLA, or Byron Murphy of Texas. And at 19, if Brian Thomas is still there, that's the guy I want, right? If there's a front line offensive lineman there, I don't know if that's a pressing need right now. That's the guy I want. I want the number 19 pick to be an offensive pick. You know, I don't want it to offend me, but I want it to offend defenses. And then I think you could pick up the rest later. Unless, okay, another caveat here, unless a Jared Verse, Dallas Turner falls. I just have a hesitation about Latu on that neck. Just call me crazy. Okay, when I was working at the Mid, getting into some Ram stuff here, when we started the Mid, we started that from scratch. We literally started the Mid-Valley Sports around my kitchen table, 2 laptops, 1 floppy disk, and a dial-up modem back in the late 90s. And our gear plan was there would be a day the Rams returned, and we wanted to be ready when the Rams returned. And a whole lot of stuff happened, and eventually the Rams did come back. But in the process thereof, we kind of built this nice little website called Mid-Valley Sports, and we covered 95% football. We used other stuff, but football drove the boat. And we would hire writers. One stretch, we had 20 stringers working for us, 15 writers, 5 photographers, so much so that I would get questioned by CIF when I asked for so many different credentials. And but one of the things we had to do with our writers is there were reporters and there were writers. And the guys that were the writers were the ones we had to work with the most. Reporters would give you a scoring summary, stats, and you just round it up and it's cool. But the writers, kids, guys, young men working their way through college and everything, they happened to fall into this trap of what we called yearbook writing. I don't know if at the San Gabriel Tribune with Steve Ramirez, if they had another term for it, but we called it yearbook writing. And yearbook writing was when a team that maybe you had an affection for, or they were just really trying hard, but they were outmatched. You just kept talking about how hard they fought, even though they lost 72-0. You go to your yearbook, and I've seen a lot of yearbooks, and the team goes 1-9 or 0-10. And, you know, the yearbook writer will say, but they never lost that fighting lion spirit or that Aztec spirit. And, well, the Aztec spirit was 0-10. And if it was the Mark Keppel Aztecs, it was, you know, an 0-35 spirit. But you never wanted to surrender to that kind of writing. And so it was kind of gag me with a spoon gross. Team would be losing 35-0, and they'd say, well, it wasn't really as bad as it sounds. You know, that kind of stuff. You know, like flames in the background and saying it was a mostly peaceful demonstration. So I'm watching Matthew Stafford's documentary last night, and it was okay. It was okay, you know, but, you know, just a little too much French pastry for me, as Al McGuire would say. Just a little too much French pastry. It was like, you know, he's a great guy. He's a great dad. He's a great quarterback, and it's produced by the Rams. And yeah, it just, it was okay. But there were some things I liked. I love seeing how, you know, I appreciated how they focused on his family. I thought that was great, and everything. But what I did like the best was showing the pain he was in throughout the season, right? His thumb hurting, the ribs, everything. And that's something you don't understand until you get really close to football, or unless you've played football. And it took me as a sports writer a few years to pick up on. I played football in my youth, but I was a basketball player through my teen and high school years. And so you kind of lose track of what it means to play football. And as I got closer to programs and I wrote my first book and I really had to kind of dive into the locker room scene deeper, you begin to understand a bruised shoulder, sprained ankle, or sore ribs in September was still a bruised shoulder, sprained ankle, and sore ribs in December. And these guys hurt all year. They'd wrap up, they'd play. And this is at high school, college levels, and then let alone what they do in the pros, right? And seeing how Stafford dealt with all of that, and then that revisit of how he got banged around with Lee McNeil and everything in the Detroit game, we realized, how special of a quarterback he is. He's a special quarterback, and he really stands in there. And that's probably why his teammates love him. It's, people love their quarterback when he takes hits for the team, right? That goes back to Kurt Warner. I think the DeMarco Farr interview for America's Game was talking about how Kurt Warner was literally getting killed in the first half of the Rams in Super Bowl 34 against the Titans. And it was like, he's getting killed and we got to go out there and start taking care of business. And so you had this with Stafford last year where he just kept coming back, right? And so I appreciated that. But overall, it felt like a rah-rah piece. And all I could think of was Al McGuire just saying just a little too much French pastry. If you ever remember how Al McGuire was, if a guy got unnecessarily fancy or superfluous with his movements, he called it French pastry. And I thought the whole piece was a bit French pastry. But I did enjoy it. I watched it. It was fun, gave you something to talk about. And again, appreciation for, the Rams did score big when they got him. I think Jared Goff's a good quarterback. And Matthew Stafford's a great quarterback. That's just how, even nothing else happens after this, right? He's a great quarterback. I do have another thought about his wife, and I'll share that when we get to around the NFL and other places, but let's keep moving on. Last couple days, an ESPN analyst suggested that the Rams send this year's number one and next year's number one and maybe this year's third round pick to Denver for Patrick Surtain. And I just thought it was kind of, I don't know, what do you want to call it?
That is incredibly jejune.
Yes, it felt very jejune, right? It felt like the writer or the prognosticator here, this guy, this draft guru, I don't really know who it was, Bill something, that he was living off the look back to the Jalen Ramsey deal, right? In a lesser sense, I don't think he worked hard enough. He probably didn't realize that it's kind of similar. The Rams traded a second round and a fourth round for Aeneas Williams back in 2001. It's kind of been there, done that. And I like Patrick Surtain. I think Patrick Surtain's great. But I also think the writer was ignoring where the Rams have committed resources for 2024. Have they brought in Tre'Davious White and Darius Williams to go and make a deal for Jalen Ramsey? And I don't know, not Jalen Ramsey, Patrick Surtain, because it feels like the Jalen Ramsey deal. And I just thought it was, I don't know. I know I'm going to look really stupid if it happens, but I don't know. It just seemed like lazy, desperate, dead period material. Didn't it? Didn't it feel like that? Didn't it feel like desperate, dead period material? And so I wasn't going to dance with that. But since it was affiliated with the Rams, I'll get there. Mr. Burns, you just had surgery, Mr. Burns, or have you gone in already? We'll talk in a second here. I just want to remind everybody, the Rams, the draft is next week. The Rams have the 19th overall pick on Thursday night. And then on Friday, it is 52, 83, and 99. And then on Saturday, it's 154, 155, 196, 209, 213, 217, 254. And you could, if you want to send me a blue chipper, under the radar guy that you think this is the guy you want to circle anywhere in the draft, let me know and we'll circle and mark it up. And I will give you total props. I'll give you total props if you get it right. Around the NFL and other places, yeah, it came up to me, something about the Lakers. I'll get to them in a second. But it was brought up to me, the Travis Kelce. This happened a week ago. I don't know, it's just slow right now. But Travis Kelce going to the Cincinnati University graduation, and I guess he got his certificate or whatever. And then he did that thing where he kind of chugged a beer. And I don't even know, maybe it wasn't a real beer. whatever the case was, I thought it was kind of childish for a guy in his 30s. I just thought, grow up, dude, grow up. To me, when I see that, he's perpetuating the elite individuals, the elites in our culture who think football players are dumb. And they do. They think football players are dumb. And they're not. They're anything but dumb. But that frat house, good time Charlie type stuff in your 30s just doesn't help. I didn't like it. He can do it. I just didn't like it. Right. And then honestly, if it really was a beer, come on, bro. Really? I just didn't get it. Read the news this morning that former Colts and Bears longtime NFL GM Bill Tobin passed away. He had a nice career, but of course, Bill Tobin, again, watching the draft when I was a kid, not when I was a kid, when I was younger. What was that, 94? I think it was in 94. Watching the draft on a Saturday, happy. I got a day off from church. My daughter is very young. And I'm watching the draft, and it's the Trent Dilfer draft, and I think it was Trent Dilfer and Heath Schuler were those the two guys that year. And the Colts had the 5th overall pick, and they took Nebraska outside linebacker, defensive end. We didn't call him edge in those days, Trev Alberts. And Alberts was a good player, but Mel Kiper, man, the guy with the hair, he just went ballistic. He goes, I cannot believe Bill Tobin took Trev Alberts over a franchise quarterback like Trent Dilfer, right? And Tobin basically at his press conference said they got into it there. It was like, he said, who the hell is Mel Kiper? And in the end, Kiper was kind of proven right. It was really good TV in that moment. It was like reality TV 6 years before Survivor. But Alberts only played 29 games in his career over 3 seasons, started only 7, and only had 4 sacks. He was a bust. Trent Dilfer was the ultimate game manager. After they tried to make him a franchise quarterback in Tampa Bay, they moved off of him. And, of course, he managed that 2000 Ravens team to the Super Bowl in 2000, and where it's probably the greatest defense ever. And I know Steeler fan Rob might not want to hear that, but that really was probably one of the greatest defenses ever, that 2000 Ravens team. And that was a team that went 3 weeks without scoring a touchdown. That was with Tony Banks, former Ram. So we're keeping it Ram centric here. And Dilfer managed it. Dilfer did such a great job leading them to the Super Bowl. They didn't even offer him a contract the next year. And they made a bigger deal to bring in Elvis Gerbach from playing out his option with the Chiefs. Chiefs said, thank you. Take off. Go, dude. We'll bring in Trent Green. And of course, Gerbach played 1 year in Baltimore. They whiffed out in the playoffs, and that run was over for Brian Bellick and that generation of Raven players. But I remember that fight on the air. It was beautiful. It was like, who the hell is Mel Kiper? Very funny. Very funny. Okay. Real quick here, watching Kelly Stafford, I can understand. I don't have any problem with Kelly Stafford. And then she had a quote today, something about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Didn't want to see her repeat. She speaks her mind. She's very vocal, strong lady, 4 kids. I get it. She can do whatever she wants. Doesn't bother me. The only thing I would just say is being blonde and white, media's going to tear her apart, and the more she speaks, I think we saw a little of this before, they're going to tear her apart, and she's going to get labeled Karen very shortly here. I think I saw some of that already from KBM media members, but just something to think about. And finally, around the NFL and other places, I was surprised some of the talk about Laker fans disappointed they got to play Denver in the first round, and that maybe they should have lost to New Orleans and worked it out to play another team in the first round of the playoffs. I think in the first round is where the Lakers should want to play Denver, right? Because after going through a whole bunch of series, LeBron and AD are going to be so wiped out physically, they won't be able to compete with Denver. And then at that high altitude. So I think if the Lakers are going to sting and surprise Denver, it's in the first round they're going to do it, right? It's in the first round. I don't think there's a problem there. And I'm not even a Laker fan. Go Denver, right? Go Denver, right? Okay. I'm Joe Terosian. I'm a sports writer for 21 years, one of the founding guys at the Mid, as we talked about earlier in the show. And I did that for years. And now I do RamView, thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law and Temple City Auto. I also write books. My books are available at Amazon. You can look them up. My best-selling one was my first one, Tangent Dreams, a high school football novel. I've gotten some good reviews on that. And by supporting Kistler Auto and my books, you help keep me in business to do this. My day job is I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene. And you can find us right here on YouTube at Burbank Faith Virtual, as well as burbankfaithvirtual.com, Burbank Faith Virtual, all across social media. So let's see what Mr. Burns has to say. I don't know if anyone else is there. All right, USA Expat has joined the party. Let's answer a few questions, and then we'll just keep moving along with this early show, because I'm going to the Dodgers-Mets tonight. Don't be mad at me, guys. I'm going to the Dodgers-Mets. I'm kind of excited about it. Tim Burns saw a mock from The Athletic saying we take Nix at 52. Do you see Nix better than Penix? If Nix is at 52, I think you got to take him. I absolutely think you got to take him. I didn't know you subscribed to The Athletic. I won't pay for that. I pick up tidbits here and there from The Athletic, but good for you, Mr. Burns, subscribing to The Athletic. You'll be our conduit to that and all of Jordan Rodriguez works there. But I think big time, I think Penix could be better. I think it's a bigger arm. But I like Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix could be a real efficient quarterback. I think he's a little more than Colt McCoy, right? I think, Colt McCoy is that classic tweener between late first round, second, third round guy who could come in and start 5-6 games for you. I like Bo Nix better than that. I think he's a little bit bigger, a little more athletic. But if Bo Nix is there at 52, I think you almost have to take him. I would definitely take him, and I'd see what it would cost to put Jimmy G in the street, definitely Stetson, go from there. Tim Burns, I want to publicly thank Steeler fan Rob for the Steelers number 155 pick. We shall take Brandon Rice, wide receiver, USC, and Pitt shall cry. Okay. Hey, Mr. Burns, do you think Brandon Rice is going to be there in the 5th round at 155? I don't know if he's going to be there. I just don't know. I see a lot of boards of him late 3rd, early 4th. That'll be interesting. A lot of guys right here on this board were honking for Brendan Rice, and I totally get it. I would get that if I were the Rams. Tim Burns again, opinion on the Rams' thought process with Ernest Jones and contracts. Are you saying we're going to get your best while you play for a big contract, and then you're too much to keep, or do they plan to pay him? I think the Rams are rolling the dice here. I think. Do we still have Aaron Donald money on the books in 2025? I think we do. I'm not sure, but we do. I think they got the money. They'll have the money to pay him. But again, it's how do you value that position when it's been devalued across the NFL pretty much? I like Ernest Jones' attitude. And if you have to pay, you got to have a spiritual leader on that defense, right? Somebody that everyone's afraid of, somebody who's been in the big game. And right now, although Darius Williams is back, he's a cornerback, and he's not a Jalen Ramsey type cornerback. And so you need that guy, Ernest Jones. I mean, he was on the field in Super Bowl 56. And so while we don't give money to an off-ball linebacker, that's a guy I would have found a way to probably sign him now. But maybe there's just some concern there. I don't know. We're going to find out. Rams linebackers are going to, when they play well, are going to be treated like Rams safeties and being shown the door. Let's see. USA Expat. I haven't dived this deep into pre-draft prep on who the Rams should take since the St. Louis days. I got to tell you, Expat, it is interesting because when are we usually looking at this? We're usually looking late in the 2nd day and definitely the 3rd day, right? We're usually getting our compensatory pick at pick number 100, 104, someplace in that Logan Brust, Ernest Jones area. And that's it. And we're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And we're seeing all these names tick off that we like. And it's really required us to dig deep. And I underestimated. I got to be honest with you. I was looking forward to the draft because every year I have done the work in the back half of the draft, but I've never really had to do the work in the front half because we just haven't been there. And so no, I agree with you. We've had to dive in on this one, and I think it's a lot of fun. And again, look, the proposition to trade for Patrick Surtain by a guy from ESPN, I thought that was like, man, I mean, really, are they any better than any of you guys? They're not. And it again, it struck me as lazy. The pick the other day from NBC Sports having Jaden Daniels dropping to number 12 or 13. I was like, really? Dallas Turner dropping to the Rams at 19? If it happens, fantastic. But, everyone talks about, the fans don't know. Well, sometimes at this point when there's desperate dead period material and the KBM's looking for clicks, they throw a lot of stuff out there. But I just don't think anybody on boards like this at Rams Rule or Ramblin' Rams or Ram Turf Show Tom, whatever, you have to feel weird about your thoughts, because telling you firsthand, I've sat in the press box with a lot of guys, not everybody. There's some hard workers out there like Steve Ramirez, but there are some guys out there, they're just lazy. They just do not do their homework, and they don't really appreciate the privilege of being in that position to talk sports and get paid for it, or write sports and get paid for it. Something we never lost at the Mid, something we always appreciated. But yeah, it is a lot of work right now. It's a lot of work. Bill, what round do we draft a kicker? I would say 6th and 7th. And I don't care if they draft 2 kickers. I don't care if it's blood sport to try and build a competition there. Let's go blood sport. Let's draft 2 kickers. Draft Cam Little. If you could draft Josh Carty, draft him. And then, put one guy in the practice squad. I mean, think about it. The Rams had Cameron Dicker in camp. Would so many of our problems be different right now if Cameron Dicker had actually stayed with the Rams? Of course, I don't know how you're going to keep him with Matt Gay, but, you'd have to pass him through waivers, and we probably would have lost him. But yeah, we got to draft a kicker. And, of course, the UFL guys. I'm all for the guys that boot 60-yarders in the UFL. You just want somebody who can be reliable and can handle the pressure. And that means if they just got a leg that extends to 50 yards, at least you know what you can count on. And you know what mark you have to get to, right? If I want my field goal to be a chance of making it and the guy's only got a 50-yard leg, then I know my spot is the 32 on every drive for me to be in scoring position. And it's just when they can't make the gimmies, right? Now, when I was a kid, a 52-yard field goal kind of caught your attention. A 52-yarder, wow, right? But I remember being at church, coming back from church, watching the end of the morning game, and our neighbors said, yeah, man, your premium kicked a 52-yarder today. Ooh, 52-yarder, that's pretty cool. That's heavy, man. And but now, when an extra point is 33 yards, 17 more yards ain't that much, 50 yards. And you just want a guy that can just hit those kicks, which Matt Gay showed he could do early on. And then his legs seemed to get longer those last couple of years with the Rams. Tim Burns, to Bill, 7th, Carty. If Carty's still there. But I just want a huge competition. And I want the stress of the competition playing on these kickers, because the game is all about stress. Amen. Amen. All right. Stuff just keeps working along there. The name Norrell Pollard, a defensive tackle from Virginia Tech, had a phone interview with the Rams. He's 6 foot 283. He's a DT. His name came up in terms of being maybe a late round pick for the Rams or an undrafted free agent. And that was one of the things to get into on this other side. And you guys can just keep throwing the questions out there. That'll be cool. We'll get to them on the other side. I think we know the routine. But one of the things that came up, I was listening to a mock draft. I think it was the Locked On mock draft, and it kind of hit on something that we didn't come up with, but the idea that you could probably in the 2nd and 3rd round just get some rotational pieces and depth to add to Bobby Brown and Kobe Turner and some of these guys, Laurel Murchison, along the defensive front. Maybe Michael Hoyt putting his hand back in the turf, and you can get a couple of guys, a couple of big wide bodies. And that way, you're not going to play the game of thinking that, Byron Murphy's going to be the new Aaron Donald, right? People are going to be all over this guy, and he might be all over himself, or Jerzon Newton or Johnny Newton, however you call him. I just don't know if DT's in the books. So that's something to think about. I'd rather make it up in volume, just a lot of bodies, a lot of 3-spin guys to run out there and maybe occupy some space and maybe give Kobe Turner a shot, and go from there. I do see edge. If there's a guy at 19, if it's I don't know. I just got this hesitation about Latu, and I'm going to tell you, I'm a bitter person sometimes. I hold on to things. in when it comes to sports. I know love keeps no record of wrongs. As a minister, I'm told that all the time. But when it comes to sports, I kind of hang on to my wrongs. And if the Rams draft Latu and he gets hurt and his career goes really short because of injuries, I'm going to be really an I told you so kind of guy. I'm just not feeling it with him. Of course, I'm not feeling it with Chop either. Now, maybe if they got those guys late in the first round and they moved back, or in the second round, Chop at 52, Chop Robinson at 52, partner, I'm all in. Chop at 19, I'm not feeling too good about it. Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, I just don't see those guys lasting that long, but if they do, out of sight, I'll go there. If not, let's make this an offensive pick. Let's load up this offense and give Stafford as much of a chance as he can, right? And then we'll come back and we'll have another French pastry piece on him next year when he goes to the Super Bowl. All right, after going to the Super Bowl. Mock drafts, they're all over the board. The majority of them, as I've shared, have Byron Murphy and Latu UCLA going to the Rams. All right, let's look on this date, April 19th, 1978. Yeah, not much. Rams traded for Dan Reisig. Okay, whatever. On this date in 1997, a little more important, the Rams did draft Orlando Pace, number 1 overall. That was a good pick. The last great tackle the Rams drafted. I mean, great tackle. We do like Havenstein. On this date in 1998, the Rams in the second round, actually third round, they scored Az Zahir Akeem out of San Diego State, Mr. Burns's alma mater, and Roland Williams, tight end. That's not bad. In a draft that also produced Grant Wistrom, fullback Robert Holcomb, who was a little high at 37, and of course Leonard Little, who we talked about on Wednesday. Born on this day in 1936 was Jack Pardee. Born on this day in 1972 was the very underrated and underappreciated Jeff Wilkins, USA expat, St. Louis guy. He would appreciate Jeff Wilkins. And of course, in 1939 on this date, born was future Ram right guard and Notre Dame Irish offensive lineman Joe Schiavelli. Schiavelli was the gold standard for me growing up. Right guard, he had been there forever, was there through the 75 season. Him and Charlie Cowan. Charlie Cowan had been right tackle, and the Rams traded for Bob Brown, future Hall of Famer. Cowan went to left tackle in 68 and stayed there through 1975. And there was just this stability. Schiavelli, Cowan, Mack, Ken Iman, John Williams. It was beautiful. Joe Schiavelli, I think, played at under 250 pounds, right? At under 250 pounds. That's amazing. But Schiavelli died kind of young after his retirement, early 90s, I think. But I just think he bears mentioning. Love Joe Schiavelli, number 71 for the Rams. Okay. April 20th, since we're not on the air, it's a Saturday. This was a great day in Steeler history. April 20th, 1996. The Rams traded Jerome Bettis, the bus, the future Hall of Famer. They traded him and a third-round pick in 1996 to the Steelers for the 59th overall pick, who turned into tight end Ernie Conwell, who was okay, and a fourth-rounder in 1997. That's what the Rams did when they gave up Jerome Bettis. That's what they got. Yeah. Steeler fan Rob, you should still be thanking us for all this. Same day, the Rams took their 13th overall pick, moved back to 18, and took Eddie Kinnison. They also got Gerald Moore and another sixth-round pick in that move back. Now, think about that. They moved back from 13 to 18. They got the 18th round pick, but they also got the 83rd pick overall. Rams have the 83rd overall pick this year. They also, in that draft, took Lawrence Phillips, Kennison, Conwell, Tony Banks, and Gerald Moore. On this date in 2001, think about this deal. Now, I give the Rams a hard time before Les Snead, but they traded Trent Green on this date in 2001. I'm sorry, tomorrow, April 20th, to KC for the 12th overall pick in 2001. Think about that. That's an amazing deal. Dick Vermeil had landed there, wanted Trent Green. Rams gave up Trent Green, which they were happy to. And they got a 12th overall pick out of that first round. And they spent it on the guy that was promised to be the next Warren Sapp out of the University of Miami, defensive tackle Damian Lewis. Yeah, he was bad. 6'2", 301, played 5 seasons with the Rams, appeared in 69 games, only 29 as a starter, scored 10.5 sacks. That guy was bust galore. Maybe not as bad as Jimmy Kennedy, but he was a bust. Okay. I wanted to throw those out there. Tomorrow, born on 1935, was Jaguar John Arnett, who recently passed away. April 21st, which is Sunday, Eddie Meter retired in 1970. Lamar Lundy was traded to the Chargers in 1970. And probably the greatest draft pick signing in NFL history, at least modern NFL history, 14th round pick, defensive tackle out of Virginia State, was signed by the Rams, and his name was Larry Brooks. Larry Brooks. Now, you draft a guy that late, sometimes you don't even know if they're going to show up because there were like 17 rounds of the draft, and they got Larry Brooks, Larry McFrickin Brooks, in the 14th round of the 1972 draft. That preceded Don Klosterman. Kudos to the people that were in the room that day that made that decision and then made it a priority to get Larry Brooks signed. Amen. Amen. Let's throw it out here real quick. Anything else? Oh, on April 20th, 2001, it might seem like a small one, but his name came up the other day. Rams lost wide receiver, kick returner Tony Horn as a free agent to the Chiefs. Dick Vermeil came back, raided the Rams. Horn was a blazing fast return man for the Rams. Same day, on 2010, the Rams traded Adam Carricker. Remember Adam Carricker, the bust that guy was? They traded him and a 5th and a 7th to the Redskins for a 5th and a 7th. Another thing I don't want to talk about. On this day, a year ago, Rams traded, on Sunday, April 21st, will be a year anniversary since the Rams traded Allen Robinson to the Steelers and got a 7th rounder in return, who turned into Jason Taylor. And we're yet to see how Jason Taylor pans out. We know Allen Robinson didn't pan out too well in Pittsburgh. And then on Sunday, this Sunday, April 21st, in 1958, Mike Gooman was born. He turns 66 on Sunday. I always liked Mike Gooman. Had a lot of feel for that guy. All right, let's see where we're at. 31 minutes. Cool. We got time. USA Expat. My biggest issue with the mocks is they only look at positional needs. Yeah, I get it. I think some of them, you can set them to randomness. You can set them to, the positional need and stuff. You can play with them a little bit. Not too bad. Let's see, USA Expat. I'm sorry, Bill, do you think Kroenke will ever replace the turf at SoFi with grass? Why not? Right? Stan, right? Let's get Stan on the horn. Dude, what are you doing? You build the state-of-the-art stadium and they're playing on a carpet. I mean, come on. Think of Cooper Kupp. Think of your guys. I know you want the venue to make money in the offseason doing other things and it makes grass hard. But this is 2024, man. It's 2024. We're cloning sheep, right? Come on. Do it. Put grass in. I totally agree with you on that one, Bill. Totally agree. USA Expat. Oh, not a St. Louis guy, but did fly there for the championship game. Go LA Rams. Thank you for clearing that up. It's just you seem to comment a lot about the St. Louis period, and I just assumed you were. But thank you. And obviously you're one of those guys that stuck with the Rams after the move. And I'll admit it. I tried to shake him, couldn't shake him, and I was back within half a season. Good for you, USA Expat. You were there, right, for the Buccaneer game. You saw the Prohl catch. It's high up on the list. Tim Burns, is there any free agents left that could help us without paying too much? I don't think if the Rams have too much they can pay right now. But no, there's no one left on the market, right? Remember by the end there, we were talking about Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney. And remember we were talking about Jadeveon Clowney, that if they can get him at a veteran's minimum, but then you had a team like, was it Carolina, gave him 2 years, $24 million? Would you give $12 million a year to Jadeveon Clowney? Just wouldn't do it. And so, there's not much out there. So edge help has to really come through the draft. And the one thing that's going to be interesting is what do the Rams think of O'Shawn Mathis, Nick Hampton, and again, Michael Hoyt is there. Are any of those guys, we know what Hoyt's limitations are. Are Mathis and Hampton ready to step up? Rams drafted 3 edge players last year. And it's not unlike the Rams to trust their guys, right? It's not unlike them to trust their guys and not take somebody. But I do want an edge. And if it's Latu, I'm going to root for him. But I'm also going to keep my I told you so in my back pocket. Tim Burns, your opinion, why didn't Mike Martz have a long head coach career? 624 is pretty solid, but he never lasted. The only thing I think about Mike Martz is, one, he got his quarterbacks killed, right? He seemed to send everybody out into the pattern. That was one thing. But I don't know. I think sometimes Martz might have been in two things. Was he difficult to work with? I don't know. Maybe he was difficult to work with. Everything was chaos with the Rams after the Greatest Show on Turf era, right? Everything was chaos. And I just don't think anyone wanted to give him another shot after that. And again, I don't know what they thought of him, but I think he went to Detroit as an OC. And if he had had another great season with one of these other teams as an OC, maybe he would. But I think age was catching up to him, and people were looking to younger guys and stuff. I don't know. I just got the smartest guy in the room vibe from him sometimes, and that he was going to do things his way, and maybe he was looking at analytics and thinking. But I just remember him leaving the quarterback a lot, just leaving them hung out to dry with no help in the backfield. And those guys, Bolger just took tons of hits. And I'm a pro Mark Bolger guy. I think he got short-circuited by playing for the Rams. He was a good quarterback. Tim Burns, this is a pretty disturbing Odell Justin Bieber video. The story is getting traction, so glad we didn't have him back. Odell Beckham? Really? I thought there was a Puff Daddy piece or a P. Diddy piece on Justin Bieber. I didn't know one about Odell. I didn't want Odell back anyway. He was going to cost too much money, maybe if he didn't tear up his knee in the Super Bowl, but I think it was a good move not bringing him back. The Rams do make the smart move. I mean, generally, right? They did generally make the smart move financially. And so good for them, right? Good for them. And yeah, I think we got the last bit of greatness out of Odell. And it was funny. They kept talking about how they surrounded Lamar Jackson with all this talent, right? Finally, he's got talent around him. And Lamar Jackson was great. But boy, they got rid of some of that talent pretty quick, didn't they? They moved on from OBJ pretty fast there in Baltimore and made other decisions pretty quick. One of the key ones in Baltimore was interesting was moving on from 3 offensive linemen. I think that one's huge. But I'm also of the belief that Lamar Jackson has limitations. And I know we started that talking about OBJ. Looking at a couple of things here, I wanted to throw out. No, I don't want to get to that one today. I think we're going to save that one for next week. We're talking more draft stuff. So we are going to be on next week. We're going to be on Monday. We're going to be on Wednesday. Thursday night, after the first round, we're going to come live, and for maybe 15 minutes, I'm going to do it in the studios of the Ram Cave. I won't be at this desk. And we'll break down that first round and pull our hair out of where the Rams did. And then on Friday, I'm kind of feeling out like what time does day 2 start on when we want to go. I'm not going to do a show in the middle of the draft. So if it's the same thing, it ends around 8:00 Pacific time or something, then we'll do another abbreviated show and then really get back into the recap of it on Monday, because I'm not going to go live next Friday in competition with the draft. And I always find the second and third rounds a little more interesting because they get rid of the red carpet glitter and all that stuff going forward. All right. Willie Bowen, will the Rams draft a strong power running back with a fullback abilities in the draft? I hope so. We've talked about that. I think they do need a bruiser. And I'm all in on Puka and Kyron, but guys, a lot of guys have one season where they're great and then they get hurt, and I think it's better. Longevity is a better thing for Puka, but for running back, they better draft somebody. And I think you got to draft somebody every year. And the real wild card is Zach Evans. Zach Evans was a 6th or 7th round pick last year. And he had, second day talent, if not first day talent. But he moved around a lot, had some issues. He can't block in the backfield. Otherwise, you can't play for McVay. But it would be interesting to see, how is this guy going to develop? I had heard there were some attitude issues with Zach Evans, and so not with the Rams, but in school. And so as he cleaned those things up, he did get some touches last year. So he's a key component there on where the Rams draft somebody. If Zach Evans is fine, then the Rams wait until the 6th round, late fifth or early 6th to draft on the running back, which is something you do every year almost. But if they're not happy with him, if you see a running back taken at the end of the second day, or somehow the Rams on the third day get into the 4th round, or even early in the 5th at 154, 155, you see them take a Davis from Kentucky or a Braylon Allen from Wisconsin or Audric Estime, you see them take a guy early, then I don't know, it might give you an indication of where they think Zach Evans is. And again, like I said, the guy's got a lot of talent, but there's a lot of guys with a lot of talent who don't play in the NFL, right? There are. Bill, we should have a show ranking the best Ram moments in the last 50 years. I thought about that. Rams Up with their guy, his name is Mark. He kind of did something similar to that. And so as he was doing it this year, maybe we can do it during the summer. I just don't want to look like we're ripping off anybody else's stuff. Rams Up does a good job. I mean, they are literally every day, 15-minute shows, and Mark does a good job over there. I don't know him. I just know his name's Mark. And then he brings in his round table and stuff. They do a good job. But they were doing some 50 greatest moments. I'm happy to do that, right? I think I might try to break it down into seasons. Let's go the last 50 years, or back at least to the 72 season. What was the greatest play anyone remembers from 72? Greatest play all the way up through 2024. And that would be kind of fun. That would be kind of fun to break all that stuff down. Okay. We're at the 41-minute mark. I'm happy to stick here for a couple minutes. If you guys have any more questions, I know I blitzed through the show kind of fast today, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And we can go into those things for a couple more minutes here. Looking at the players the Rams have interviewed or spoken to, breaking it down offensively, defensively. Washington defensive end, Braylon Trice, defensive player. Jalen Ford, Texas linebacker, defensive player. Odunze, Nix, Estime, Pearsall. Carson Barnhart, that's 6, Michigan. Roman Wilson, that's 7. Sandstrill, that's the 3rd defensive player. Jalen Harrell, defensive end from Michigan, that's 4. Fontenot, that's 8 offensive. Savion Jackson, edge, North Carolina State, that's 5 defensive. Andrew Phillips, cornerback, 6 defensive. Chop Robinson, that's 7 defensive. Mark Perry, safety, TCU, that's 8. Chase McClellan, running back, that's number 9. Chase McClellan is 6 foot 212 out of Alabama. He was a 4th round projection and now is looking like he's a 7th rounder, 6th rounder, 7th rounder. And Norrell Pollard, the DT that we talked about earlier in the show, that's 9 names on offense and 9 names on defense that we've got actual proof the Rams have either spoken to, interviewed, or worked out. And I didn't look at the update list today, but that's something to think about. So, and again, it all depends on where these guys are, right? Some of these guys aren't going to be 1st round projections. Odunze is a 1st round projection. Fontenot is a 1st round projection. Chop Robinson is kind of a loose 1st round projection. I think some of those guys are just contingencies. But I think it is a good question that I think Tim Burns put up, that if a guy like Bo Nix is there at 52, don't you grab him? Don't you? I would grab him at 52. I would just, you just have to at a certain point. And I think what's his name would understand. I don't think there would be a problem with Matthew Stafford on that one. Let's see here. Willie Bowen, Lawrence McCutcheon rushing touchdowns of 73 was awesome. Hey, Lawrence McCutcheon anytime is awesome. If I was going to go to the 73 season, it's all about Harold Jackson for me, though. And the game against the Cowboys. Those my greatest. That first half, listening to it on the radio, Dick Enberg, former Dodger pitcher Don Drysdale, the color commentator, believe it or not, and just hearing him just torch Charlie Waters and the Cowboys it solidified me for life. But big McCutcheon fan. Saw him catch a touchdown pass in that first Ram game against the Chiefs that year. I'm very, very pro McCutcheon. Tim Burns, who is your dream pick that is realistic that you really want to see in horns? Okay, if one of those defensive ends, Jared Verse or Dallas Turner, dropped, I want them. I want one of those 2 guys. If not, I want a wide receiver, and I kind of like Brian Thomas. to feeling realistic, because Odunze would require draft capital to move up, right? But there's a possibility that a Brian Thomas could fall to the Rams at 19, and that's one that I do like. Brock Bowers is there at 19. I feel like you got to draft him if he's at 19. I don't want to move up for him, but if he's there, I want to draft him. Let's see here. Bill, my favorite moment was Flipper Anderson against the Giants in the playoffs. Yes, that was a pretty special moment. Rams on the road. Remember that Ram team that year? They lost those games against the 49ers. They lost that late season game. Was it a Monday night? I don't think it was a Sunday night, where John Taylor had those 90-plus yard touchdowns, and so depressing. And then the Rams had to go to Philadelphia, right? And Buddy Ryan's team, and they are talking about Clyde Simmons was going to do this and this, and the Rams won in Philly. And then the Rams went back to New York the next week, and I remember that week because our thing is, you can't, if you go to church, okay, you're going to find this out in my book that I'm talking about. If you go to church, you got to keep your routine, right? And so we felt like we would jinx the Rams if we didn't go to church, so we recorded Rams Giants. Actually, it was Dwayne Barker who clicks on here and watches the show. He's still working for the Mid. And so we went to church, and he was recording the game in his house. I mean, this was old VHS tape and everything. And we got out of church. Yeah, okay, great. Nice job, Pastor. Let's go. Grab some food, kept the radio off, and raced to his house. And we got there. And so we're speeding through commercials. And, man, we're just on the edge of our seat. And then the pass to Flipper, he beats Mark Collins. And the Rams win, and it feels like, man, this is a team of destiny, right? And on the road twice, and they won. And, that was Bill Parcells' team. A year later, that team's winning a Super Bowl. That's Lawrence Taylor, right? And the Rams beat them. And I just, it was just such a great moment when Flipper caught that pass, and heck of a pass by Jim Everett, right? And then a week later, the Rams die. The first iteration of the Rams in Los Angeles dies. They have the long drive, watching it with all the guys from the Mid at that point. We weren't at the Mid then, but we were all friends. And my friends Tim and Dwayne jumped up. They got excited. The Rams kicked the field goal on the opening drive. And I said, no, they needed to score a touchdown. And they were crying, no, man, it's first blood. And I knew we were in trouble. I think the next possession, the Rams were moving the ball a little bit. They ran a flea flicker, and Ronnie Lott batted away the flea flicker. And then it was over. Next thing you know, you had the phantom sack. And that was that 30-3 nightmare. And the Rams were dead. The Rams were never the same again. And the team came back and won the Super Bowl 10 years later. But in terms of Los Angeles, they were dead. And that was just an awful, awful day. But yeah, so Flipper Anderson was like a zenith there. That was a great moment. Harold Jackson was awesome. Loved Harold Jackson. Willie Bowen. Oh, he agrees. Willie Bowen agrees with Bill on the Flipper Anderson. Manuel Correa, what's up? What's up, Mr. Correa? Tim Burns, go through who your favorite Rams became as the years have gone by. Okay. All right. Guys, I got 3 minutes. I'm not going to go past 50 minutes. I'm going to respect your time. You grew up Harold Jackson. Boom, right there. I was late to the party on Jack Youngblood. I was more Fred Dreyer because, again, listening in my bedroom on the radio to Fred Dreyer getting the 2 sacks of Jim Del Gaizo and Scott Hunter. And so I was a Fred Dreyer guy. And then, time goes on and all of a sudden, your players you're starting to like. I really loved Pat Thomas. Pat Thomas was one of my favorite players ever with the Rams. And then, of course, Wendell Tyler. Wendell Tyler was one of my favorite Rams of all time. Never didn't want to see him go. Loved Isaiah Robertson. Kind of bounced back and forth there in terms of timeline. But loved Wendell Tyler. I was really mad when Wendell Tyler was traded. I was really mad he was traded to the 49ers. He runs for 1,000 yards in 83 and then another 784, and they win a Super Bowl. Without a pass interference penalty, they might have gone to the Super Bowl in 83 as well. But then, you like Dickerson. And it was kind of heartbreaking when some of the contract stuff came up because you just wanted the team to play football. Loved Charles White. I was a huge Charles White guy because of USC. And then you just started appreciating all those guys going through. Kevin Green, obviously. And then Pete Holohan, right? Pete Holohan was one of my favorites. And things were wrong after that 89, because that's when they broke up that team. Greg Bell didn't come back. Pete Holohan didn't come back. And things were just bad. And those last 5 years in LA were just terrible. Nothing went right. We were rooting for TJ Rubley, right? That's how desperate we got. Loved Henry Ellard, not as much as some of those other guys, but loved them. And then by the time the Rams got to St. Louis, it was just, until I got Sunday Ticket, I couldn't catch all the games. You kept to read about them in the paper and stuff. But it was hard to pick up. And then in '99, they caught momentum, and so they were on TV quite a bit. And just loved that receiving duo, that trio of receivers. Oh, fourth one, Ricky Prohl, Akeem and Bruce and Holt, and that was awesome. Then Kurt Warner was just off the charts. You hadn't seen anything like him. Then Marshall Faulk, Steven Jackson was huge in those dark days. Loved Steven Jackson. And then, of course, getting into the modern era, loved Bobby Trees. And, of course, it's easy to say Aaron Donald, but loved Bobby Trees and all these guys going forward, John Johnson. And you just gain an appreciation for these guys that are presently with the Rams. How can you not root for them and stuff? So I hope that helps. USA expat, Willie Miller's story. He was the Vietnam guy, right? Vietnam guy, goes to college late, works out a career. Willie Miller's got a great story. That should be a movie, right? Willie Miller should be a movie. And I agree with the expat there. Willie Miller has a great story. DHP, just saw Odell and Justin Bieber video. Very suspicious behavior. Ooh. Will there be a Saturday day 2 video next week? Okay. So what we're going to do next week is we're going to go live after Thursday night. And then I'm thinking going live after Friday night. And then I'll see on Saturday. It's kind of a busy day for me because, I work on Sunday, but we'll get something up there. If we feel like it's flowing well by Friday night, we'll announce it. We'll do it Saturday night as well. And we'll just see where we go. I don't want to do too much of a roundup in short sips because I only envision these shows going about 15 minutes on those days. And then on Monday, we'll come back with our regular show and really break it down. And by that time, you're going to get some news breaking of who the free agents are the Rams have signed, right? Because they're going to be signing those undrafted free agents. And those guys are commodities, right? Those guys are commodities. Rams, Coleman Shelton, Alaric Jackson, Darius. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that were undrafted free agents. Now the Rams got Darius Williams after the Ravens let him go, but these UDFAs, man, they can do a lot for your franchise. A guy like Michael Hoyt, UDFA. Don't judge him on his pass coverage, but just judge him on the rest of his play. So yeah, it's important. I'll do my best, DHP. Manuel Correa, email, please. Didn't I just post my email, man? I'm always doing my email. There we go. JT Bank. 1964 at Yahoo. That's my legit email. That's not my giveaway, my email to somebody that wants me to subscribe for something. So I'm trusting you guys. There you go. Manuel Correa, Nolan Cromwell. Of course, we love Nolan Cromwell. Jim Youngblood. Yeah, he gets a little shortchanged. He was a great outside linebacker for the Rams. And, second round, was it Tennessee Tech? Tennessee State? No. Joe Gilliam was Tennessee State. I think it was Tennessee Tech, Jim Youngblood. What a find, huh? Must be a Don Klosterman deal in 73. Let's see. Dan O. Loved John Robinson's coaching style. I liked it a little bit better than Chuck Knox, at least in the game strategy. But, I didn't know. I don't know if any of you thought about this, but have any of you ever thought about the way we see offenses now? Wouldn't it have been marvelous if the Rams set up in an I formation, right? And then motioned Dickerson out into a slot. Can you imagine the fear of the Lord that would have put into that 46 defense of the Bears? But of course, you would have needed somebody other than Dieter Brock to get him the ball. But I thought Robinson was okay, but I thought after a while he became predictable. But I am pro John Robinson because I was a USC guy. Bill, Roman Gabriel is the reason I'm a Rams fan. I knew Roman Gabriel. I saw The Undefeated. I read the Roman Gabriel book, Player of the Year in '69. And so Roman Gabriel's like legendary, but unfortunately, my seeing Roman Gabriel was the broken down 1972 version, collapsed lung, elbow, shoulder issues. And so when he was dealt in my neighborhood, in my household, people were happy because they got a haul back for him. And then they brought in John Hadel. And of course, when you start off your season 6-0 and 73, it's Roman who? And good for him, though. He put together some nice years in Philly with a bad Philly team. Of course, he was throwing to Harold Carmichael and Charlie Young, so good for him. Let's see. Manuel Correa, Rams love free agents. They do, those undrafted free agents. Dan O, Kevin Green, absolutely. Did you hear the breakdown? Did you guys see the breakdown that we did a few months ago, that the trade of Preston Dennard? Remember Preston Dennard, undrafted free agent, signed by the Rams in 78, becomes their leading receiver, 79 through 83. In the offseason or going in August of 84, he's traded to the Bills. The Rams get a fourth-round pick or a fifth-round pick for him a couple years later, and that pick is used to take Kevin Green. That's pretty cool, huh? That's how an undrafted free agent can net you a future Hall of Famer who his biggest struggle with the Rams was the year Jeff Fisher was the DC. Go figure. Manuel Correa, have a nice weekend. Thank you. Manuel Correa, thank you so much. Jim was Texas Tech. Okay, thank you, Manuel. Thank you for straightening that one out. Willie Bowen, don't leave out the fearsome foursome. I don't know how old you are, Willie, but again, my defensive line was Brooks, Olsen, Dreyer, and Youngblood. And they didn't attach fearsome foursome too much to that group. I thought it was interesting. I saw a variety show that somehow popped up with the Rams on it. It was Milton Berle in 67, and Rosie Greer had been hurt, and the Rams had traded for Roger Brown. And so they brought out Roger Brown, Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones, and Lamar Lunde in the Rams' blue and white uniform, and they're wearing their whites, and they were referencing it still as the fearsome foursome. So I don't know. Was it still being referenced as the fearsome foursome through the 1971 season when that was Deacon Jones last year? I don't know. But yeah, it was legendary to me. The fearsome foursome, and as it was legendary to me, because I couldn't believe that Rosie Greer, the actor, the guy that said all the kids' albums that we heard at school, Rosie Greer was a football player. I didn't know that. And he played for the Rams. I didn't know that. Manuel Correa, my all-time secondary for the Rams, Dave Elmendorf and Bill Simpson, the safeties. Did you know that Dave Elmendorf, that originally I read an article after Super Bowl 14, because that was Dave Elmendorf's last game with the Rams, right? Fourth-round pick, 71, Texas A&M. He's part of the Ramskins deal. The Rams got that draft pick, drafted Elmendorf. He was a starter for 9 years for them. But after that Super Bowl 14, this writer tried to lay the John Stallworth, Eddie Brown fiasco. They tried to lay that on Elmendorf, and they wrote that it was Elmendorf that blew it. And I thought, man, that's just lazy, man. You're a professional writer. How can you say that? Everyone knew it was Eddie Brown. So I felt Elmendorf briefly got a bad deal there. But we always appreciated Dave Elmendorf. Solid safety. Bill, great show. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I really do. You don't think I do, guys, but I do. And so I just always want to hit my marks when I'm with you guys. Willie Bowen, my favorite LA Rams, Nolan Cromwell, Pat Thomas, and Rod Perry. Was Pat Thomas just awesome? He was so tough for a corner. I always thought that the Rams should have converted to a 3-4 defense as Thomas aged and just made him an outside linebacker because he was so tough and feisty. Loved Pat Thomas, right? And he's the one that knocked Lynn Swann out of the game in Super Bowl 14, and that's the reason why Stallworth should have been in double coverage. But don't I digress there, and I get really angry. All right, guys, I have gone an hour. I have to go now because I got exceeded 58 minutes. So, guys, I will see you on Monday as it's draft week, and we'll just have a lot of fun. Manuel Correa, Pat was the man. Thank you, guys. God bless. Take care. We will see you on Monday.